Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and what the hell do we care now? It's a grand old team to play for, and we are signing them up. McBride, we are keeping them here for another 5-6 years, for some of them, maybe even longer, but we've got new contracts here, there, and everywhere. Bunch of speculation in between, and yeah, a few bits and pieces to chew over. But McBride, good to see you, mate.
You too? They're not giving you a new contract yet? No, handing them out willy-nilly at the moment.
Yeah, could definitely do a new one for sure. I think next time I'm up at the stadium, we'll see if I can get a wee chat with Nicholson and see if I can get an extension myself. But there's plenty of you joining us live. If you're joining us live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, when we're live, after we've been live, thank you very much. Please do hit the like button, get involved in the chat, in the live chat, or in the comment section after we've been going about everything and anything Celtic, Sorare, and everything else in between with transfers in the squad and whatever as well. Fist bumps to everyone on arrival. But yeah, McBride, it's been, coming into July especially, where we're expecting with Rodgers getting into training. We heard the press conference stuff. We kind of chewed over a lot of that last week. But we maybe expected a wee bit more actual incomings to at least some rumours start to happen. But we've had none of that, but we've had all the internal stuff instead at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, obviously, Calum, what can you say? The guy's the definition of a club legend. Like, came through at the club, out on loan for a short time, won everything, captain, talisman, plays pretty much every game. He doesn't really seem to need a rest or anything. He's been brilliant. Speaks really well about the club. Handles that sort of that being the captain. The pressure and everything that brings, and how he represents the club. So he's just great. And obviously, 5-year deal means he'll be here until he's 35. So that really rules out any moves you would have thought, wouldn't it? I mean, if somebody did want to come and take him and he thought, well, I'll go and my swan song for some reason, but Celtic have obviously crossed these palms with silver and used some of that Saudi Arabian sports washing money or whatever you want to call it. So, but yeah, tied them down, and obviously Furu and Maeda as well. So it's nice to see. Although there's been a big outgoing, there's some stability there as well, because there's a core squad there that's been really successful over the last 2 seasons too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was quite worried about a lot of upheaval. Like we've speculated on the channel and on the show already quite a few times about who might not fit Rodgers, who might be 1 foot out the door now that Ange is gone, etc. And I think we were all worried that Kyogo might be one that we could take away from us, because he's so having a striker prime of their life, peak form, settled in, everything, blah, blah, blah. That's such a hard element of the team to replace, certainly, So he was a huge kind of first domino to drop in this little sequence. And like you say there, Mr. Celtic, announced today with the longest contract extension up to 2028 for McGregor. That'll take him up to the age of 35, like you say. So, huge. It's not even foundations because they were here already, but it's just like doubling down, isn't it, on this is the squad and this is the project.
Yeah, I think really, to be honest, is that my camera frozen again? See, his camera's honestly. It's not even a good picture of me either. Right, I'll try and troubleshoot that in the background. But I mean, I think something we used to sort of talk about in the past was can you build from a position of strength, that type of thing. So, can you actually build from a position where you've won a treble, etc., and capitalise on that, rather than being in a position where you're having to do rebuilds. And obviously, when Ange came in, he was having to do a massive rebuild. So, it was really a situation that we're in dire straits, really. So nearly as bad as this camera. There we go. It's back on. Let's see.
Hey,
can work technology. It's just the camera that's not working. So it's good to see that stability, and it's good to see, obviously, McGregor's a key guy, and obviously the managerial position's a key thing at the club as well, So having that sort of core of guys there, and even the backroom staff, sometimes John Kennedy gets a bit of stick. I don't know why. It's maybe just because he kind of moved into coaching quite soon, and but he's been really successful and stuff at the club as well. And sometimes maybe the fans, even me, will talk about him, and we're judging what people have done and stuff, but we don't work with these guys like day in, day out and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think for that point of view, I think what you see now is maybe one or two good quality signings coming in, something that really you would, say enhances the first team, and big CCV in the plane to Portugal as well. So I don't know how fit he is yet, but certainly seeing him in the plane to Portugal was brilliant news as well, because I didn't really know if he was going to be joining pre-season training, was going to miss a few games or whatever. But that's brilliant as well, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly what Brendan was talking about in the press conference, was adding quality. And it feels that, it would have been obvious we would need quality if we were going to sell lots of quality. Obviously, we've sold Jota to this point, but if we also did sell Kyogo, Maeda, O'Reilly, or Rio, if it was like 3 or 4 big exits, then obviously we would need to buy quality, but it wouldn't actually move us forward. But with locking these guys in, it does feel like any quality additions that do come into this at this point will really help us move forward. In that respect, we've got a good shout here from AG Low asking for a powerful box-to-box midfielder. And there was actually a little interesting, funny link we could maybe start the show off with a little bit as well, McBride. I don't know if you picked up a whiff of this, but Donny van de Beek has been told he can do one, and there's a laundry list of clubs, and we are like in there somewhere as having registered an interest. Is it something? Is that one we should think about or look at? He is a box-to-box midfielder. He's maybe not quite as like rugged. He's maybe a bit more attacking, but all the same, box-to-box.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. Obviously, done well at Ajax. He's still relatively young. The only thing that concerns me about the likes of these moves is when these guys go to like Man United or whatever, then they do end up on like bigger wages and everything as well, So obviously we've been linked with some young guys, maybe guy from the Swiss league or whatever. And the good thing there is it's still a kind of blockbuster move. You still spend a lot of money on it, but it might still fit, roughly speaking, within the overall wage structure. But these guys have gone to the EPL or whatever. The problem often is how much money they're actually getting paid, Because look at KT, right? KT trebled his money or whatever going to Arsenal, and that was his first contract there, and who knows how well he's done since then, if he extends or he goes to other clubs or whatever. They're just in these leagues, they earn like far in excess of what Celtic would normally pay. So for Van de Beek, I think he would be a really good signing, but how much is it going to cost and how much is the overall package? Not just how much is a transfer fee, how much are you going to have to spend every year on wages? Because we have seen, sadly, with guys like James McCarthy, where we kind of pushed the boat out, and all right, it was not pushed the boat out, but it was a free transfer, but it was obviously a big transfer with a long contract and a good wage, and really he's done hee-haw. So, there we go. But I mean, in terms of type of player, he's quite. I like him. Obviously, I remember him being a good player. But he's just not really done anything at Man United, which doesn't mean he's not a good player, but he's not done anything for a number of seasons, really.
Yeah. The thing I worry about with the ones that, like you say, go there and get the big bucks is they become a Billy Big Time at the next club, and it's a wee bit like, oh, I've got the stuff, I'm just came from Man United, what's this deal? But, and maybe they get a wee bit divish. Maybe, it's just a thing that could happen that I would think about with these deals is maybe something you would want to avoid. But yeah, just one I thought I would throw out there because I thought that's not going to happen. But it's funny to see your name, or see Celtic's name linked against it. We're getting a lot of prominent shouts in for goalkeeper right now. We're talking about the contract extensions that we've seen roll out, like Kyogo Daizen and Calum McGregor, right? But the more notable voices in the media that we've had over the last, let's say, 6 days, it's been Matt O'Reilly, which we'll come to shortly, I'm sure. But there's also been Joe Hart, who was out facing the media after some training or whatever. So I think we all agree goalkeepers on the menu. Joe Hart's in his last year of his deal. He's not getting younger, of course. But that made me think Hart's on for this year, that presser. Yeah. What did you think?
I think so as well. I mean, obviously Connor Hazard, I think, is going to Plymouth for a small fee, like 150,000 or something that was reported. So it's a relatively small fee. So obviously there's one going out. And people were talking about Scott Bain, and obviously he got his chance to play against Hibs last season. He was rotten, but Siegrist, I think, had an injury, and then when he came back, obviously he wasn't really in the squad. So I think Siegrist might have got some chances to play maybe some cup games or whatever if he was fit for the whole season, because I think any time he did get a chance, he looked okay. I think it's 100% a position we've got to address. I don't think it's a complete urgency position for this season, but obviously knowing that Hart's out of contract and he's aging is something that we've got to prepare for. So do we bring somebody in to bed them in and give them the season to maybe play some of the cup games or whatever and then take over from Joe? Or do we just go with what we've got and say, right, we'll address some other areas of the pitch just now and then, go for that big transfer when Joe goes to the MLS or back to the Championship, or he just finds a boat and retires, whatever. I hope he doesn't, by the way, because that'd be terrible for Sorare. MLS, China, whatever, just not Saudi Arabia at the moment because we don't cover that at the moment. But I mean, it's a position that's got to be addressed. I mean, and obviously, if you look at his form the season before, I think he had about 20 clean sheets in the league, and then last season he had less, and also he conceded a few goals where I think people would admit that he probably should have saved them. So obviously, people are going to look at that and say, have a kind of he's in decline and all that sort of stuff, but he might not be. I mean, he's obviously still a goalkeeper with a really good pedigree. So, from a personal point of view, I hope he's still here because I've got a gazillion of them. That's so rare. But I don't think it's completely urgent, but it's definitely a position where I think we can improve the squad quality.
We've got the comments here from Plunge McNugget and a few other people talking about Siegrist. But I'm pretty sure I heard Siegrist was on his way to Australia because of his missus or something.
I think it was just a Twitter rumour or something. Like,
was that just banter? Fair enough.
I don't think it was a serious report, to be honest. I mean, Siegrist, obviously, when he signed from Dundee United, signed a relatively long-term deal. Now, I mean, if he really wants to move to Australia or whatever, then fair dues. Again, that's terrible for me because I've got a few of him on Sorare as well. Hopefully, I was hoping if he moved, then he would be somewhere else. I mean, Frank said Siegrist's been a waste of space. Well, what I would say about Siegrist is, has he actually been given the chance? I mean, he's played a couple of cup games. He played okay, as far as I can see, and then he's been injured. So I don't think he's been a waste of space because, Hart's never been injured. He's never been asked to come in and step up and play games. Maybe he's not forced his way in over Hart, but Hart had a good season the season before last as well. I thought he kept a lot of clean sheets, and Hart, Starfelt and Vickers, when they've played together, haven't lost a domestic game in 2 years. So it's quite hard for somebody like Siegrist, even if he is a good goalkeeper, to actually break into that, right? But there we go. I think he's been a good signing because it was a free transfer. He's proven the SPFL, and he's still only like 31 or something. So he could still be part of the goalkeeping team going forward. Whereas Hart, you're more worrying about what age he is, unless he really wants to play on. I mean, obviously, see, Craig Gordon's broke his leg and he's trying to come back at 40. So he's like 3 years older than Joe Hart. So it depends on his desire to play and how his ability is still, I guess. So.
Yeah, fair enough. I think, for this season, if Brendan's going to get, if someone's going to get, a last dance kind of season out of Joe Hart, I'd fancy Brendan Rodgers to be the man that does it, So I think Joe Hart's probably got enough about him that, if it's all bought in that sense, I can get behind it for this year, but it doesn't avoid the inevitable that at some point he will move on, sooner rather than later. And we're going to need to confront this issue. It's one of those ones where I could maybe see it getting kicked down the park to maybe January or something. But see, as me and you look across goalkeeper positions across Europe and whatever, there's a mad merry-go-round on the go at the moment. I was making a note of it earlier on. See, between like Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, and Man United, there's like a whole cascade of like 8 goalkeepers. Now, I know we're not traditionally in the same shopping market as these clubs, right? But these goalkeepers all want to be number one somewhere. They all want to be playing Champions League football. They all want to be winning medals. And if they are going to be moving and stuff, then we're a pretty great option, So we are going to be in the market for someone. I had to find the little thing, but there was a thing on Twitter I shared in the group chat with you and Etienne and Mark Patrick Rare. But there was one of these like Celtic Underground forum and thread things and whatever, and it reckons that, where does it say about the goalies? It's like we're after 4 goalies. But one is from England and not a young player. Now, the first person that sprung to my mind when I read that, be prepared for the milk to fly out your nose, was David De Gea. Because it's like, where the hell is that guy going to go if it's not Saudi Arabia? It probably will be Saudi Arabia, but he's not young and he's in England and he's unattached now. So, but that's just a giggle, obviously. But apparently,
cost us like 10 million a year in wages. That's no sweat.
But again, he's made his money.
10 million a year in wages.
He could do it for nothing. He could do it pro bono or whatever you call it. So I think we're still quite active in that department, but I wouldn't be surprised if now that Hart and Brendan have got their feet under the table and had a wee chat and been on the training pitch and all the rest of it, they've thought, do you know what, we could get, we can go with Joe Hart for the time being if we don't get maybe these priority targets that are available there now. And just to give you a flavour of who I'm talking about, who's kind of out there, we've just seen, it looks like Muric is going to be moving from Burnley to Fenerbahce and all this kind of cascade effect of, goalkeepers that are running around. So the boy at Fenerbahce, Bayandar, I don't know where he's going. We've also got another Kovac floating about. Marmadashvili from Valencia has been heavily linked to Bayern. And a part of the knock-on for that as well is they've got a guy called Nubel, who, again, doesn't really have an obvious club where he's going to at the moment. You've also got the boy Raya at Brentford. You've got Soria over at Getafe, who's in the last year of his contract. Sommer, I think he's probably going to Inter Milan now, isn't he, along with Trubin? And then, there's a few other guys that are probably not worth mentioning. But there is a lot of goalkeepers slushing around there that, like I say, all want to be number ones playing Champions League football.
Yeah, the lad Travers lost his place at Bournemouth as well. Yeah. Mark Travers, he's a good goalkeeper and he's been linked with Millwall now. So, and he's pretty young as well, so he would probably fit the bill, although it looks as if there's wheels in motion for him to move back to Millwall and stuff as well. So, I mean, there definitely are goalkeepers available and stuff out there, but I always come back to it as well. Joe Hart's not a guy we're going to sell just now, and obviously he's a senior player and he's on a good wage. So, does it work within our overall budget? Because I know we've got in the Champions League and oversold Jota and stuff, but we don't have a magical money tree. We're not Saudi Arabia, so we've still got to work within that budget and see where we want to improve. The problem, like you've mentioned, all the top young goalkeepers that are going about just now, but there's not many more than that, if that makes sense. So getting top young goalkeepers is pretty difficult because it's a position where people need to play for years and gather some experience and stuff. So obviously anybody under 30 realistically is probably youngish for a goalkeeper, because you get 4, 5, 6 years or whatever out of them. But it's the club strategy has been focusing on investing in guys like Holm and Tilio, who are, lo and behold, under 22 or whatever, so does look like the route we're going down. So I think the most sensible thing to do might be to go and find somebody who's a bit less tested, but in playing in one of these leagues, like the guy Peretz we were talking about, the Israeli under-21 goalkeeper, somebody like that, somebody that would cost you 2-3 million, willing to sit on the bench for a year, learn, play some cups, and then be ready to take over from next year. And obviously you would have years and years and years of utility, as we call it, or like years of obviously that guy being there. But there's plenty of goalkeepers available, there's plenty of backups and everything available. I just don't know whether or not we're really in need for one just now. So if Sagres comes in and says, I really want to go to Australia, then we 100% need another goalkeeper in because Scott Bain's rubbish.
Yeah. We're getting a question from John McCauley, going to the relegated Leeds and try and get Ilian Meslier from them. I think he would be out of our budget, France under 23 international goalkeeper. On that note, by the way, of France under 21 goalkeepers, Albin Lafont, I would take him at Celtic. He probably wouldn't be that dear, from Nantes.
Yeah.
Did they get relegated? Nantes? No. They just survived, didn't they?
I don't think they did. I think they stayed up, but Blas has moved to Rennes, so they're already starting to sell off some guys and stuff there. I mean, there are plenty of good young goalkeepers about. I mean, there's a guy, Elia Caprile, plays for Bari. He's a cracking goalkeeper. I think they might have come up, so obviously he'll probably want to play in Serie A. Sassuolo have got a really good young goalkeeper called Chirati. Again, these guys don't think have so rare cards or anything, but are kind of well-known, really good young players. So, I mean, there definitely are players there. And I think when you were talking about Livakovic, when I seen how much he was in terms of fee, that really hit home. It's like, we can afford 7 million euros for a goalkeeper. Like, that's the kind of quality we should be shopping in, because we've just sold Jota for 25, 27 million or something. Even if Benfica get their cut, if Frimpong moves, we get a cut of that deal or whatever. Like, we could afford to go and address that position, but should we maybe get another good centre half in? Worry about Starfelt and Vickers more so as how capable they are on the ball in Europe, but also what happens if one of them gets injured. We're looking back at last year and played a Champions League game with Gents and Welsh, and we're surprised that we conceded 3 against Leipzig because it should have been about 10. It's no rocket science, they're not really guys you're going to be expected to keep a clean sheet away from home in Europe with. So maybe a left-sided centre back, and then that would give you the option if you really wanted to maybe play 3 at the back. I don't know. Like Brendan obviously might have other ideas about the system. So.
Well, on that, I think the whole defence is kind of still undershadowed. Like, we don't know what the situation with the defence will be. Does Rodgers play Taylor? Does he play Bernabei? Does he sign a left back altogether? Again, that kind of rumour mill thing where we're reading says a left back is basically done. A left back is something that we've been after, and apparently it's a done. There's one in the offing. So that. I think the right-hand side, we know Alistair Johnson is anyone's cup of tea for a right-back. He's solid. Yeah. Carter Vickers, again, anyone's cup of tea for a centre-back. And it's just, is Starfelt going to be good enough to partner him for Rodgers? And like you said, does he then maybe bring somebody else in on the left-hand side? So I think we'll maybe need to wait and see, because I think Taylor would have been away with the international contingent as well. I've seen Bernabei in the training pictures, and I'm not sure I've seen Starfelt in training pictures, so I don't know if he's back in town yet. So I think maybe the answers to that stuff will be coming soon. But again, it's still stuff that we don't really know what the manager's thinking yet, because he's only had them on the training pitch. In terms of the defence, Johnson and Carter Vickers are probably the only, as we speak right now, safe, guaranteed, like going to playing next year. You would think, wouldn't you?
I'm going to be a wee bit controversial with Bernabei, but I think he actually has got the makings of a good player. He's just not very good at defending. So, like, if he was playing in the right system, like if Rodgers says, I'm going to play Greg Taylor at left centre-back and I'm going to play Starfelt and Vickers, or another left centre-back and then play Bernabei beside him, then he would be fine. But he's not, he likes to get forward and stuff, and he's still got a lot to learn. And again, he's a young guy. I mean, he's the kind of definition of what we can afford as a backup. We're I don't think, in a position where we can just do a Man City and slot somebody in who's a top international player as a squad player. Like, at the end of the day, the backups have got to be backups. But a good centre half, I think, would definitely move us forward. It would completely kill my SO5 on Sorare, probably. But as long as Vickers is playing and as long as we don't get a new goalkeeper, then it should be okay. But I mean, I think with Bernabei, like, he'd almost be better as a left midfielder or a kind of left wing type player rather than just a left back, because it doesn't look as if he's got much positional awareness or whatever. But I think he is a trier, and I think, like, under a good manager like Rodgers, he might well just get the best out of him. I'm not saying he'll be a world beater or whatever, but I don't think he's a volleyball and goalie or whatever type, A donkey.
Yeah. I kind of hope for Bernabei that under, like, for lack of a better term, a normal manager that plays normal fullbacks, Bernabei might have a bit of a different experience when he's playing versus Ange Ball and filling in for Taylor. Or now that Taylor's not playing, you're playing, the system's now going to be different on that side of the pitch. So then he's playing with players that are not doing what they've been doing for the last month before he got his minutes, if any of that makes sense, the way I've said it. Yeah. So I think Bernabei could quite easily transform, but I think I agree with Frank and a few other people in the comments, in the sense that, like, I do feel that Champions League level, Bernabei and Taylor, I said this, I think, last week, but when I think about both of them on the back foot against a Champions League level striker winger, I don't have much confidence in either of them pocketing anyone, are really, pushing up that level. So as much as I do think domestically, both of them would be quality for us, and depends on the group stage, they might just be good enough, if you know what I mean. I think that is maybe where they're at the moment. And that's really down to Rodgers. Maybe can kick them both on another level. Taylor was amazing last year, but I just feel that I don't think he's going to get the same role in the team. And subsequently, I don't think his role in the team, we even did that kind of stuff at Champions League level. I don't think we will do that stuff at Champions League level anytime soon. So it's like, it's just one of those ones, unfortunately, where, even though he's quality in that role, we're not going to get into, it's just not going to happen. And that that situation that is the pinnacle of the season, is the winning the league, of course, but doing well in Europe is what we're all here to push for now. Is basically Brendan Rodgers' sentiment. So I think there's a wee bit of surgery still in defence, probably.
Yeah, I think it's a position we could improve. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a position we could improve. Another position that's really obvious now is the wing position as well. Because I know we've got like Haksabanovic, and interestingly, Mikey Johnson's come back and he scored a goal for Ireland, and I think he got his chance under Brendan Rodgers previously. So there'll always be a rumour of kind of reformation of the relationship there and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, there's definitely areas we'd be looking to improve. I think like we're talking about a box-to-box midfielder or whatever. Like, you've got Calmac, you've got Hatate there. I think O'Reilly would be classed as a more creative midfielder, but it's that sort of person that can unlock the door. I think O'Reilly can actually. I think he's got the ability to unlock the door sometimes, but it's obviously because we've been linked strongly with this guy Reader from Young Boys or whatever. I've looked him up a lot, and he looks like the type of guy who is technically good on the ball. He's been able to score some goals. He's getting involved in goals and assists. He's young. He looks like he's got a huge price tag, which you could either say is a huge risk, or you could say, well, there's obvious reasons for that. So, a guy like that would definitely, I think, improve the squad. Bearing in mind you're losing, Aaron Moyes already away, and who else maybe do we let go of if there's some offers coming in? Do you let a few of the squad players go and try and improve the quality in those positions as well? But yeah.
We're getting our couple of shouts for the Van de Beek again. I think I've seen two since we spoke. We spoke about it right at the top of the show. So if you did miss the Van de Beek stuff, we did discuss it for a minute or two right at the top of the show. I think that's just, I don't think, we're going to be anywhere near that deal for a few reasons. Budget, competition and whatever. Yeah,
what do you think of as a loan?
I don't think we are in the market for loans we can't complete. I don't think we want any part of a loan that we can ultimately then benefit from, similar to what we've seen with Jota and Vickers, So, yeah, I think it's a non-starter on a lot of levels, to be honest. Sure. But, yeah, I think the wing positions, if we can nail down Abada, and what I mean, if Abada doesn't sign a contract, like, how long has his contract actually got left until 2020?
He's still got 4 years left or so, 3 years. I mean, there was obviously rumours about him, but a lot of this stuff just started by the media. So 3 years left in his deal. It's not anywhere near panic stations or anything. I mean, maybe he's not happy that he wasn't starting more games or whatever, but again, there's a new manager in, and that's his chance to go and impress Brendan Rodgers. Maybe Rodgers likes him, You just don't know. I think my concern, if you're playing Abada and maybe Maeda in the same team, is that Maeda works really hard, but Jota was a guy who was capable of going beating a man and creating something. Whereas Maeda sometimes does create things, but he's maybe not always got the quality to have the final delivery or whatever. I know he did it in the Rangers game where he pounced on the ball, he swiveled and he's crossed the ball in, but a lot of times he's played on the left and he looks a bit weak in his left-hand side in terms of his left foot and stuff for crossing and stuff like that, So, I mean, in terms of a good winger, I don't know. We don't know much about Tilio. Maybe he will be good, but he sort of screams more of a kind of squad player project type guy coming from Melbourne, and hopefully somebody who will improve.
I think so too. I think basically where we're set now with these extensions, if we can keep a hold of Abada, I feel we've got the forward line locked down with Tilio. Who knows what happens with Johnson? But with Tilio, Forrest and I think that's easily the shadow, if you like, to Kyogo Maeda and Abada, if Abada stays. And Haksabanovic, then maybe he's been dying to play midfield. We're talking about people that can unlock doors and stuff like that. I don't know if I'm convinced he's good enough to do it. But between him and Turnbull, again, I wouldn't be surprised if one of them take Moyes, like kind of squad spot, if you get me, is that kind of attacking midfield option that's already here. So I think the whole box-to-box midfielder is kind of the obvious spot that's missing. But I think a lot of it, mate, does hinge on if we keep Hatate or not, because, again, if you look at the midfield, it's absolutely stuffed. We've got lots of talent in there, and if he stays, it's like if you're going to sign somebody, who are they going to play over? Because the team is, like we mentioned at the top of the show, it's stacked with quality. So O'Reilly feels bought in. McGregor's extended. And then, there's definitely a space for somebody else to come in. But Rodgers, I was listening to his press conference or his little interview he did with Celtic TV. I listened to it earlier today. And he was talking about how impressed he was with not only James Forrest, the Nicky's in at the moment, but also the young players. And I kind of hear Ben Summers when he's talking like that. I don't know if I'm reading between the lines, but guys like him and Vata will still be a part of the squad, it feels like. So
it's a nice position to be in, and it's better than sitting here going, "Oh well, I think we need 6 or 7 players because we're rubbish." I mean, we are building from a position of strength. We just signed 3 contract extensions. I would hope we're working on Hatate. I don't know, or maybe if we don't work on Hatate, if it doesn't go this season, we just got to realise that he'll probably be attracted by a big bid next season. I hope he doesn't go now, because obviously losing him and losing Jota, I think, takes away some of the kind of key elements of the team that's been so successful, just ability-wise, because it's no offence to Maeda. I always keep coming back to Maeda, and he offers a lot, but guys like Hatate have different abilities to somebody like Maeda. Maeda does a lot of the hard graft, and he comes up with big moments, but then he'll go and run sort of 2 or 3 games where he doesn't really score, or he's missing chances or whatever, and then you'll have Hatate popping up with something brilliant for midfield, or even just unlocking the door, getting the ball, beating a guy, or going past a guy and putting somebody in or whatever, so there's been a good balance across the play. I think you noticed when Hatate was out injured at the end of the season, you noticed a difference in the creativity in the midfield, playing against teams, and it was all going a bit stale, it was kind of, you just noticed it wasn't there. So, some of the draws. Obviously guys like James McCarthy just haven't really contributed anything, to be honest. Stephen Welsh probably been a bit harsh because he was like Scotland under 21 captain at some point, but it's hardly a vintage Scotland under 21 team really. And Scales done okay, obviously, at Aberdeen, and now he's back, but I don't know if he's going to be good enough to kind of contribute Celtic wise. Maybe he's a reasonable cover there for left centre back or whatever if you get some injuries. I don't know, but Kobayashi, I forgot him.
I keep thinking about Kobayashi as well. I've seen him in the training photos. He's been there. He's been knocking his pan in, trying to impress the gaffer. I hope it's a bit of life for him, Sorare wise, because of the cards I've got.
Yeah.
But in midfield, there's lots of them, man. You forget we've still got Sorrow on the books. It looks like technically Liam Shaw's on the books as well. And this Eboué Kouassi, I think this is an error. He's definitely not on the books anymore.
He's at aye.
I think that's an Opta error because he's fell off the face of the earth. They just don't know where to assign him to. So he's still Opta assigned to us.
Or something. He's just, I think he actually was owned by Genk or something. He's away to Portugal or something now. So a Jetty, that's an interesting one as well. We'll try and get somebody to take him on. But I'd like to see Hatate sign an extension, and I'd like to see Rodgers put his own stamp on the type of player that he wants. So if it means getting even one really, really good big signing, 12 to 15 million, this is a guy I really want. This guy's going to improve the squad. I think that's better than just bringing in a couple of more guys at 2 or 3 million. Obviously we've got a model now as well. So if we bring in guys and we improve them and eventually they have more resale value, then that's good. But I'd like to see us push the boat out and go for that kind of transfer record, just like sign somebody that we know is proven quality. If they're worth it, obviously, got to get the right players there. So
yeah, I feel quite confident we'll break the transfer record this summer. It feels like it would be a slap in the face to the fans not to, with the way it's all been kind of built up, this, just everything that's happened over the last 3 months, really. It feels like, all the talk of the transfer war chest we've got, then we'd still sell a guy for more money. And then as Celtics are here, we confirmed in the live chat here, we got just under 5 million quid from Spurs for Ange as well. And then, like you say, there's Frimpong money potentially floating about and all this other stuff that all these other little fingers and pies that Celtic get themselves into with sell-on fees and stuff like that. So if we don't break the transfer record this window, I think it is a slap in the face. And I think it's difficult, right? Because I think the obvious transfer to put the most money into is goalkeeper. But I think also you can't break your transfer record this summer on a goalkeeper. What do you think?
Well, if it was somebody really good, then fair dues. But I think that's probably more a move if Joe Hart's expiring contract-wise and you're losing him, because you could justify going spending more money if you're losing his £15,000 a week or whatever as well. So he's obviously on a big wage as well. So yeah, that's a difficult one, isn't it? I think you're probably better buying a midfielder or a winger or something.
Yeah.
2 minutes, Quinny.
Yeah, sure. Got some good comments in here talking about saying these guys would play, but if someone better comes in, then maybe that would slide them out. Totally, I take that on. And I think there's somebody else that said it as well. I'm trying to get them both on screen. Sorry, but it's. I think you need to get guys that are definitively better. So Van de Beek on loan, right, could be and should be better maybe than one of the midfielders we have at the moment, but we don't own him, and unless we're going to have the option to buy him, what we're then doing is depreciating our own player by sitting him on the bench, who is good enough to play. Maybe needs another season to get to the level that the Van de Beek or whoever is currently at, and all the rest of it. So it's one of those ones where if you're going to get it, for the quality we're looking to add in, I think they need to change the team. I think they need to make a markable difference. Whereas Van de Beek, I think he would just take Tate's role in the team, be very similar, maybe a bit more energetic, because from when I seen Van de Beek at Ajax, and I don't think anyone's seen him at Man United, but he was very energetic, line to line, box to box. And Tate does that, but doesn't do anything really in a rush, it feels like, and sometimes he can get caught in possession and such, So with Van de Beek in particular, that's where I would come back to you. But I think as well, like, the quality has to come into and like, you have to kind of cover it from both sides. I think we'll probably go out and break our transfer records to try and get a marquee player in. And we were linked a bit a week ago to Carlos Borges, and that kind of disappeared. But somebody, I think, of that kind of, everyone's obviously talking about Reader at the moment. I think we'll go and get a talent in on a record deal. And then I think we need to try and get an Abada type, maybe forget about right wing where Abada plays, right? But just another potential top end talent to come in at the bottom end. And then whenever players leave, then hopefully you've got guys that are at both ends of the conveyor belt, if you like, of guys that are developing as well as developed. He is better than what we have at his best. It's not debatable. At his best, yeah, but will we get him at his best is the jeopardy of the deal, I know we're not. I know it's just it's the conversation we're having. Instead of saying Van de Beek, I could be saying Player X. I'm just saying that name because that's the name that's in the chat. But Player X, and then just put whatever placeholder you want. And yeah, I'll just try to catch up with all the other comments. But yeah, so I think we'll get a track. But again, like, it is like, yeah, you need better players to come in. But at the moment, it's really, I think, like Rodgers said to me when I asked him about the quality of the transfer business, he said to me one of the most important things was, keeping players out the club. Maybe if we're trying to sign people who aren't good enough, and equally, maybe the ones that he will decide to sell, whether it be like, and I'm just going to say names that are on my screen here. I don't know, like Turnbull's, Haksabanovich's, maybe it is Abada, maybe it's O. Maybe some of these guys get a bit of interest and he just wants to cash in on them. But I think ultimately it'll be interesting you'll see where he thinks the weakness in the team is by who he pushes out first or who he replaces the quickest, if you get me. And I think that will tell us a lot. I don't know if you caught most of me, McBride. I was just kind of chatting with the chat there.
A wee bit, yeah. Yeah, but I think we're carrying a few guys in the squad that we don't really need. But the problem with the likes of McCarthy is obviously they're under contract, right? So you've seen with Barkas, Celtic kind of almost had to let him go on a free, which is a bit surprising because he's done pretty well in Holland. But obviously when we bought him, we spent 3 or 4 million, we put him on a good contract as well. Maybe Celtic have just thought, well, if people can meet this guy's wages, we'd be better just letting him go, But I thought we'd maybe get some money back from him, not talking about 4 million or whatever, but 500,000, $1 million or whatever. But kind of seemed that Utrecht couldn't really afford to pay his wages, and he's ended up in Turkey, hasn't he? I think he's landed at some mid-table team in Turkey or whatever. So that was a disaster. But the reason it was mentioned because of the James McCarthy thing, right? So he's come for the EPL and he's obviously in a good wage, and you can't force a guy to leave or whatever, So unless you can find a club for him, then you're just kind of stuck with him there in the squad, unfortunately. But that's what it is. I mean, obviously the budget's expanding a bit now because Champions League money and the incoming player sales and stuff as well. So I wouldn't get too hung up on it, but it'd be good to see just the actual quality level being focused on, as Brendan was saying. So
yeah, big time. So in terms of our preparations for the summer, we've been a wee bit nervous over the last couple of weeks with some of these departures. Like you were mentioning your defence earlier, I was very nervous about Maeda. I thought I'd be losing him to a German team or something like that, and that would kind of break up. But with McGregor signing on, we've mentioned O'Reilly's comments already. Didn't really go into them, but he was talking about how he really liked the Brendan Rodgers training experience where you can sit next to the manager, you can talk to him. He's like part of the team. He's not this detached figure, which in all fairness, like people are acting surprised by this, but Ange always said he keeps distance from the players and he doesn't get too close to them. So like, I don't know why folk are that surprised by the thing. It's more surprising about how O'Reilly kind of talks about it, if you get me, about how it's almost like a pop, isn't it? So in between that, so we've got O'Reilly, we've got McGregor also signing, we've got Maeda signing, and we've got Kyogo. So between me and you, mate, that's 3 uniques and a bunch of super rares, all kind of all locked and loaded and ready to go for next year for midfield and attack.
Well, I should stop talking about Greg Taylor because he was the one I just bought in terms of unique. But I was pretty lucky to win some with him as well, so I'm a bit more relaxed about it now. But I think, as you said earlier, if you keep Hatate, you've got McGregor, Hatate, and O'Reilly, and there's not really much in there that you need to change. So it's be really interesting to see what areas he does actually look to strengthen and what type of players he looks to bring in. So it is a nice position to be in because, okay, we've lost Jota, and no doubt about it. He was a really good player, but the money's there to go and recruit as well. And we brought in a couple of young boys as well. Some of these guys might actually might surprise us. The boy Holm, we've not really talked about him much, but he was pretty highly rated, obviously, in his homeland, and maybe when he was younger, they expected him to be a lot better than he actually is now. But he's only 20, so guys like this could come in and start providing something that I'm not saying he's going to be as good as Jota, but he looks as if he's got some ability on the ball from eclipse. He looks as if he's got some technical ability, so he might be that guy who comes on for the last half an hour and unlocks the door or whatever. So yeah, but it's hard to focus on certain areas, I think, because there's so many different rumours and stuff. So rumours are this guy and this guy everywhere, and somebody put up a thread about Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. I think it was M-Pen, and he was like, I'm just going to put all the transfer rumours on this one thread, and within like 2 days he had about 50 rumours or something. It's like, well, obviously they're not going to sign 50 players, right? It's just ballistic. So we'll see what happens when the club do the business. So
yeah, I think any rumour is the way a rumour is bullshit is if all 3 of the Turkish giants are in the rumour, then it's made up. Like if this guy's linked to, it's normally West Ham as well. This guy's linked to Fenerbahce, Besiktas, Galatasaray, and West Ham. It's like that's just made up. Like, or Everton, West Ham and Everton always get chucked in there as well. But when you see those rumours, that's when it's baloney, because just like you say, they're linked to every man and their dog in these windows. But I see with the Taylor thing, mate, I'm almost trying to jinx myself into being Taylor that's the left back for next year, because I don't want to get my hopes up that Rodgers will fall in love with him and Rodgers will keep him in that role and all the rest of it, because there is rumours that left backs are going around. We heard Tierney rumours rapid off the bat, so I just kind of want to prepare myself for the worst, and hopefully I'm wrong in a good way, and it is Taylor SO5 purposes,
I mean, KT's obviously a proven quality type player, but like, it's kind of that thing about do you go back to things that have worked well in the past? And I controversially said on Twitter at one point, I'm not really sure that's a deal I'd want us to be doing. I don't mean from point of view of bringing in Kieran Tierney, just obviously he's went down there and he's on mega money and stuff like that. If we were to bring him back, brilliant, we know his quality, but he's been struggling a lot with injury and stuff, so if you're going to Mark McKenzie, that's a great shout. I would like.
You'll remember this, but we wanted him to go to Celtic when we got Carter Vickers. We were like, we should have got Mark McKenzie. So I would
Yeah.
take him now.
Yeah. I think Mark McKenzie would be really good. And he's done really well at Genk and basically is like cemented himself as centre back for Genk and stuff, which, you know, they're right up the top of the league as well. But come back to Kieran Tierney, sorry, I think the main issue with Tierney, I think, has just been his injury record, and we probably ruined him, right? Because he came into the team at like 17 and he was doing like a Calmac. He was just like, he would never get rested. He'd be running up and down the wing like a maniac, and you know, and he was phenomenal for us. But whether or not actually bringing him back now and spending any type of big money on that would be sort of cost effective for Celtic, I don't know. Like you said earlier, if you want to get somebody in, you maybe get somebody in a loan with an option to buy or whatever, where you push the boat out and say, we'll buy this guy for 10 million if he's really good. Whereas if Tierney comes back, is there any realistic prospect as paying the transfer fee for him? Not with the figures that have been quoted when you're seeing links to Newcastle and all that sort of stuff. So I just don't know. Just don't know how realistic that is. But you know, if Rodgers really wants him or whatever, the good thing about Tierney, I think, would be, you know, his quality, and also for Scotland, he's been playing left centre back as well. So that might be kind of interesting as well. Is just maybe he's not going to do all of that marauding stuff. He can do the defensive job, or he can go and do the marauding stuff in Scotland, and he could play a bit more defensive in the Champions League. So I'm going to shut up now, because now I'm talking myself into wanting him back. So started off by saying we shouldn't get him back. But yeah, I'd love him back. Yeah, absolutely love him back. But whether or not that would be a good deal for Celtic or whatever, that's obviously depends on the financials. So
Pat's got a great transfer list here for us as well. Livakovic, McKenzie, Kings Canwa, Carlos Borges, and I forget his first name. Yeah, that would be a great summer. I think that's like beyond our wildest expectations. But I think we could, if all of them were on the table, I think Celtic would only push the button on 2 of them personally. Like, I don't think in all of that list, I think it would probably be Livakovic and probably Kangwa, to be honest with you, because you could
Borges,
get Kangwa out.
Borges might be realistic with the Man City group link, right? So, you know, maybe they'll want to give him the showcase to go somewhere and prove how good he is. You know, obviously, as you said, it's maybe at a lower level or whatever, but he's getting loads, getting amongst all the goals and assists. He looks like an exciting player, and I kind of like something like that. You know, like maybe even if that was an initial loan, but you had a £10 million buy option or whatever, I'd rather see us do something like that. Because if he is brilliant and he loves it at Celtic, and Celtic go and pay 10 million, there's a chance of selling him for 20 million, then that might be quite an exciting deal. That type of thing, I don't know. It's just like rough figures and stuff, you know, because that's what we did with Vickers and Jota, right? Vickers came from Spurs on loan, and you're thinking, oh, he's going to go, and we're going to be struggling to replace him. Next minute, we activated the option, and he wanted to come. Same with Jota as well. So yeah, can work for sure.
Yeah, it's all about that talent idea, isn't it? And yeah, so I think like the way the squad's going now, like it has to be somebody that's totally different, because we're kind of still covered to a position for the most point. So there's no obvious like, oh, we need a guy that can come on and do this, because we kind of have a guy that can do a little bit of everything. But for some areas, there's just a distinct lack of, you know, top end quality. We spoke about defensively at left back. We spoke about centre back, and in midfield, because we don't really know what the configuration is going to be. Like, does Rodgers want a deep lying ball winner? You know, like just because his name has been floated around and it was at his last club, a Wilfred and Ndidi type of guy?
Yeah.
Or does he not care for that? Does he want to maybe play 3 at the back and be a bit more progressive and be a bit more possession based, even to get in the Champions League, try and do that kind of thing? Will kind of dictate on the quality that comes in. But the Tilio guy, a lot of people in the comments are really excited to see Tilio. We were at the unveiling for him as well. He's really excited to get going. And yeah, I think as long as we're always looking at good, talented players, these guys like him and Odin, Holm, and whoever else might come in that kind of mould, are always going to just keep that Celtic kind of vibe going that we're always trying to develop and pull some guys through. Jamie Burns has got a free transfer wish list and a half here. In Dide, Lanzini, and Yerry Mina, I'm guessing the last one is. It won't be Santi Mina because he's in jail. Splash on McTominay or Van de Beek, and give Moussa Dembele whatever he wants. That's some wish list, eh?
Well, Moussa kind of fell out with Rodgers, didn't he? He came out and was publicly saying that he'd went back in his word and stuff. So I can't really see that one. But obviously, yeah, I would love to see him coming back. But I mean, again, Kyogo was so good that if you brought somebody like that in, what would be the balance of up front? You know, like if you leave Kyogo there as a main man, I think that's fine now, because he's proven, like, in terms of the goal scoring and stuff, that he's going to do it. And even with Maeda, like, he plays obviously more wide at the moment, but I think you've got some depth in the forward position, because you could play Maeda up front if you get some random injuries to Kyogo and or whatever, or even Maeda might be an interesting option if you were playing away from home in the Champions League, and maybe actually you decided to change tactic, and rather than go and try to score 10 goals against the other team's 9 goals, you actually play a bit more compact and then start playing counter-attack stuff. Because the problem in the Champions League was just thought we were a bit too open at times, and Ange wanted to play a certain way, but it never really worked in Europe when we get battered by Bodo Glimt the season before and everything as well. So that was probably the main area where we never really seemed to get any sort of decent results. Although we played quite well against Shakhtar away from home and stuff. It was kind of like we should have probably beaten them in Poland or wherever it was away from home. But we had the chances in that game. So maybe been a wee bit harsh seeing Welsh and stuff playing the Champions League games. If you'd have had Vickers and Starfelt there, and if you'd maybe taken one or two of those chances, then you'd have been in the Europa League. So it's fine margins, but we're talking about the top table or at top level. So we've got to push beyond that and start beating teams at Parkhead.
I hope we don't do what Mark thinks here as well, and it will be typical Celtic and go for the big signings towards the actual deadline itself. I've quite liked the business getting done nice and sharp and early, and we know who's coming in, and they'll get to train together and bed in together. So I hope we don't wait for deals to come through and do things at the deadline. It just feels like it would be suboptimal at this stage, because Celtic are one of the biggest clubs in the world. We all know that. And when we're back on the Champions League next year in the group stages, like, the talent that we've got in the squad at the moment cannot be underestimated. And when I've seen people in the chat, which is why I'm giving them it a wee bit. Some people are wanting to come in and have a bit of a go, but it is Celtic is genuinely one of the biggest clubs in the world. There's no getting away from it. And what we need is these talisman in Europe. Kyogo, I think he didn't cover himself in glory in the Champions League. He did miss sitters. Celtic's XG in the group stages was just over 10 goals. We scored 4, and I think Kyogo is a big part of a lot of that, missing some chances. So. I think quite easily, we've seen guys like Kyogo score in Champions League, fast poacher tapping, on the counter attack on transition strikers. So I think under Rodgers he could easily crack that nut. And if you know what I mean, and if you add in 5 more goals into last year's group stage, we're getting a lot more points than what we actually ended up with, and it's a totally different, campaign. So I think. Overall, there's a few haters want to join us today. We look forward to seeing you throughout the season, and hopefully we'll draw your club in the Champions League if your club's in the Champions League. I'm not sure it is, and yeah, we'll see who's men and mice. I think actually, if it's a Tottenham fan, we might actually have a bit of a grudge match on the go already. I think there's rumours that there's a Celtic Tottenham friendly on the go. McBride, did you see that?
That seems a bit weird, doesn't it? Yeah,
it will be fun.
Ange put jumper there, well, oh well, I don't know. Remain open-minded to these things, but that would just seem a bit weird to me, to be honest. But in terms of size, what we're referring to is, firstly, we're the biggest team in Scotland. Secondly, we're talking about signing guys from Dynamo Zagreb and stuff, and it's no offence to these teams, but there's teams and there's leagues there that are developing really good players. And Celtic are definitely a bigger club than Dynamo Zagreb. We've got more money than Dynamo Zagreb. Dynamo Zagreb apparently only want €7 million for Livakovic, which I think is a humongous bargain. I think that's not a lot of money for a guy who was playing really well at the World Cup. Equally, though, that's the kind of market that we're in. We're spending $7 million in Jota and $7 million in Vickers, and now all of a sudden we've had a big sale. We're thinking about being more ambitious, but that's been our level for the last couple of seasons as well. But there's no reason why we can't be picking out these guys from other leagues and go and spending money on them. And it doesn't have to be Asia. If there's the right player in Asia, then go and get the right player from Asia. But it might not be. It might be the right guys playing for Sparta Prague or whatever. See, Benfica, they never got Kerkez, and they went and spent €12 million and they bought Jurasek from Sparta Prague or Slavia Prague. Can't remember which one, but there's players out there, and there's guys there that you can go and say, we'll spend 7, 8, 9 million, and those clubs will not be in a position to turn it down, in the same way as we weren't really in a position to turn it down for Jota. That's just the way it goes, right?
Yeah. Thanks giving us a wee bit as well about Ange Ball not working in Europe. I think Ange Ball in Europe next year would have definitely progressed on from last year. So I'm not changing my POV on that. Maybe it's someday in the live chat. It's a wee bit of stuff going on, but no, for sure, man. And I think you're spot on, mate. It's like a Juranovic. Like Juranovic's are out there, if you know where to look and you know what you're after. And I think Rodgers said it in the press conference, but he said the club in the past had been confused. Like sometimes we were going after players of this quality, thinking they were going to turn out or treating them as if they were of the quality of the team that we had. That was his kind of explanation on things before. So as long as that confusion's gone and we're a bit more clear in mind and we're picking up more of those, Juranovic type signings, those cute ones from the leagues in Europe where we should be bossing the market. We should be just showing up and going, we're Celtic, we're taking your best guy.
Yeah, just like what PSV have just spent 12 million euros and no lying. Obviously, they make a lot of money in terms of outgoing transfers and stuff. They've signed Pepe. Ajax always sign young players to develop their own young players, but you'll see they'll go and buy guys like maybe Kudus, who came from Denmark or Norway. I can't remember. Also mixed up in Nordsjælland, but there definitely there's markets out there that we can go and look at. Holm came from Scandinavia, so we can do that. We definitely can. It's just obviously it can be a big task getting all these guys together and getting them as part of the group and all that sort of stuff. And what Ange done really well was he brought obviously Hatate and Maeda and stuff, and people were thinking, we're signing guys here from a different culture. They're coming to Scotland, and he managed to integrate them and they hit the ground running type thing, They've done really well off the bat. But the core group's there, so you're just looking for some quality add in there. I think I'd like to see us go back to Argentina again. I know people will just laugh at that because of Bernabei and stuff, but the Argentinian league, because they are pretty skint, has got the biggest percentage rate of under 21s that actually get minutes. So that sometimes you'll sign a guy from there that's been playing centre half and he's 20 or whatever, and he's got 2 seasons under his belt, So, there's definitely different markets that we can go into if we want to do it. It's just a case of identifying the right player and stuff. And under Rodgers, the problem the last time was he never really got any good targets. That was the breaking point, right? So I'm not defending him, but he was one Castagna, and we get Jeremy Toljan on loan, who was rotten. So, that's the type of quality of signings we were making, and I think we've come on a long way since that.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it all as well, mate. So I'm kind of waiting now to hopefully see some developments. We're going away to the lads are all flying off to Portugal. I've seen Daizen has left Japan and is going to be joining the boys out there as well. And, the preseason schedule's been mixed up a wee bit. The Korea tour is off. We're still going to go to Japan for a few games. And like I was just saying with the Spurs fans that have showed up for some banter, I think there's rumours that we're going to be meeting Tottenham, maybe in Asia for a game somehow, somewhere or whatever. But I think very quickly, once Rodgers has got the full squad together, we might see some rapid developments, because the worry we had in the chat was maybe Celtic leave it to the deadline again to go and sign Skepovic or something. But I really don't think Rodgers wants to play that game. And ideally, I think as soon as he realises this guy's not for me, I think he'll try and move quite quickly and quite decisively. So I think I would hope to see over the next week some movement somewhere that tells us another position getting locked in. It feels like I said a moment ago, like McGregor, O'Reilly, Daizen, Kyogo, Alistair Johnson, maybe Joe Hart now, Cameron Carter-Vickers, what are we at? So probably like 8 guys from the last season's best 11. You can probably say, yeah, we've had some sort of tell that they're bought in and they're going again for next season. And then it's just the other ones who's missing, who's get sold out of that lot, and who we're bringing in to upgrade them with, But I think when we look at all these, no, you go.
Tilio and Holm obviously were sort of part of the scout network already, so it's not like the guys have come in and Rodgers has handpicked them or anything. They were kind of basically signing at the same point where he was signing. So and people forget he's only been here 2 weeks or so. I don't know, maybe it's been longer. He's not been here a long time, so players have just come back. So he maybe actually wants to have a couple of training sessions and stuff with the players and assess them himself. And obviously he knows the club, but he'll want to see what he's got available in training before he goes and spends a big amount of money on a player. And we've got loads of time. It feels like we've not got loads of time, but think back to the years we're playing against Astana and everything in the Champions League, and we're like, oh well, we sign guys, we don't know because we don't know if we're going to be in Europe, and we're getting beat 4-2 away from home like these teams, and now you're just waiting in the draw. So it's not panic stations or anything in terms of signing anybody. As long as you get them in by round about that first game of the season against Ross County, then you go for there.
Aye. So I think that it's the preparation. That's what I was going to say. Like earlier on, we mentioned like wanting Castagna and ended up with Toljan and these kind of things. And I think those mistakes have been, that cross has been bared by the club now. They're the ones that pay the money. And when Rodgers left, they were carrying the can for the mistakes. He's gone. So I think they've kind of scarred themselves in that sense that you hope they don't repeat the same mistakes again, because with the Champions League entry this season and next season, as long as we win the league as well, and the reformatting, this is a real golden opportunity for, McGregor. Somebody's quoting, I think it was Jay, was talking about how great it is to have Rodgers back. Rodgers' comments about being back is saying it's like back in the family and whatever. And it does feel that, we've got a unique opportunity to really step into that mold of being at the team that we used to be in Europe, where everyone should fear coming to Celtic Park. And when we go away, we're thinking about, can we go and try and win this game? Because that's the way that used to be normal. Like, can we go and win away? And then out at home, it's like, right, who's coming to town? Let's get the battle drums out, sound the horns, and let's go to war, with whoever it is from the far the European football and make some memories. And I think that's what Rodgers wants, because we were talking about the European campaigns before. Draws against Man City are cool and, whatever, but like, he didn't really achieve anything. We beat Zenit over one leg. Yippee-yi-ki-yay. It doesn't really touch the sides, does it? So I think he's definitely after, creating history in that sense. And I think honestly, it's so underestimated how quickly, like, that gap can be caught with deliberate, where we're talking, you mentioned like Kudus and Nordisland, and we can use lots of examples from across European football of teams that try and be smart and try and go about things in a different way. But I don't think there's been any clubs where I've really looked at, Celtic or otherwise, over the last couple of years, where there is just so many of the right things in place at the right time. PSV have done fantastic business this summer. Noah Lang's actually left the training ground injured today. I don't know if you caught that. Unable to walk. So that's a bit of a karma coming back. Former Ajax guy playing for PSV. For anyone but they're just going from strength to strength. And it wasn't that long ago they signed Mario Götze, World Cup winner from Bayern Munich. Now I know obviously we have a damaged good at the time, as it were. He had a bit of a health problem or something, but there's ambition to be had, and I think you need a manager to drive that for Celtic, because we don't have the sporting director to do it. We don't have the directors that are really that. They don't really seem to have the appetite for it. They're more happy to be led rather than to lead in that regard. So I'm quite confident. I think when Rodgers gets a taste, gets a nod of this guy's not going to be good enough for me, I think he'll act on it quick enough, and we all hope now that he's listened to, and we've got the catalogue of targets. Who do we buy if we're going to sell this guy, or who do we buy if we need a position filled for this type of profile of player or whatever?
Yeah, we've got the money now as well, right? So you're not worried about, well, we get in the Champions League, can we predict the budget? We know what the budget is for this season. I know you were saying earlier, if we win the league, we're in next season again. Obviously, we've got to do the business there first, but we're in pole position for that. And obviously he's taking the job. He's been told that if he wants targets or whatever, that they're going to give him some backing. So whether or not anybody knew about Jota at that point, who knows? But obviously that transfer budgets went up. So there will be incoming. So people, obviously, everybody's the same. You get a wee bit impatient with it, and you just see a couple of youngish type guys going in and a big high profile exit and Jota and that type of stuff. And it's frustrating as well. But keeping this group of players together is a big job as well. It really is. And people say, well, you can't move forward, but guys like Hatate and Maeda and stuff are improving. Like, you can move forward. Like, Hatate's getting better all the time. So, if you've got young players, you can actually move a team forward by improving them and then just adding what you need round about that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, it's hard to see the progression there on that, but yeah, I think Maeda's got better.
Getting worse.
I think he's getting better over time. Got a few bad scores at the bottom there. Yeah.
Sent off. Aye.
All right enough.
But he's still young, guys. 20, Daizen's only, 24, 25 or whatever, he's like, you're not talking about guys here. You are talking about guys that should be kind of approaching the peak of their careers. I mean, Furu's probably, at peak, that's like, yeah, loads of greens.
Goal machine.
Yeah.
I think I heard the stat. What is it? 38? Was it 50? Oh, I can't remember the stat. But the goal to game ratio is like 2/3. It's like, his goal per minute's fantastic at the moment. So, like I mentioned, kind of at the top of the show, I just think he's just so hard to replace. A proven, nailed on goal scorer at the arrowhead of the team is fantastic to build upon. But yeah, I'm quite looking forward now. I feel a lot more comfortable with my Celtic stacks compared to what I did maybe about 10 days ago. Now that Kyogo's nailed on, Daizen's nailed on, and McGregor as well. 3 contract extensions that were brilliant. And I think we're all waiting now. I see the chat talking quite a lot about how until there's an extension for Rio, Carter Vickers, or Abada, the press are just going to be linking them away all window kind of thing. So I think prepare yourself for the shower storm of bullshit from newspapers just looking for the clicks and whatever. Because I think, again, if you listen to Abada and you listen to some of these guys, most of them are pretty straight in the sense that they'll just tell you what they're thinking. And if you listen to enough football players talk, you know when they're telling you, I might leave. Hitachi's comments we had last week was talking about he wants to play Champions League, and that's what we're all about. So yeah, I think the omens are good, but we need to see maybe some pen to paper or at least some happy images and stuff like that, before we can maybe concrete in a few more names onto the list.
Yeah, I think Vickers, he just signed up really, and obviously he was kind of carrying the injury, and it all seems a bit more low key. And I rate him obviously, but if you look at like who Ange's looking for, he's trying to sign like Tapsoba and guys like that. So obviously there are clubs that have got bigger targets than the likes of guys we've got, but that's fine. We've been successful next season, and even CCV's not that old in the grand scheme of things. I think he's only 26 or something like that. He's 25. He's not. He's still got a few years ahead of him as well. So yeah. If we could come back to Champions League, I thought we kind of played well in the Champions League, but we never really get any results. So there's a couple of games we played well, and never really put the ball in the net and stuff. So I'd like to see us actually getting like 7 points out of 9 at home or whatever. So I remember I used to go to the games and people in the chat will just be ridiculing us now, but we played against AC Milan and beat them, and AC Milan were the reigning European champions, and with like Scott McDonald and everything playing, and we beat them. And that was the atmosphere at Parkhead. The attitude was, we can beat anybody here. Bring on whoever you want. On a one-off game, we can beat them, and that's what we want to get back to, I think. We might not be able to beat them away from home, but if you get 7 points out of 9 at home or whatever, and you pick up a result, that's you in the knockout phases. Like that's what we should be aiming for.
Yeah, totally agreed. Frank's talking about making it past Christmas and stuff like that. I'm totally on board with that as well. It's all about starting to compound in some success and compound in some experience year after year. So yeah, European football after Christmas is definitely a top priority, I think, for us all. I think we would enjoy Europa League more because you can dream about getting to the final of that a lot easier than you can dream about getting to the final of the Champions League. But dreaming is dreaming, and I love the big dreams. So European football after Christmas, I don't care what competition it's in. And we've got a lovely comment here from Brian asking if there's any signing updates. Now, we've kind of spoke about it throughout the show. There's nothing really concrete came out today. But see, as I went back, McBride, to look at the forum post thing, the summary thing that we mentioned already, I'm noticing right in the middle of that list, it says one from England on loan, not a young player. And it makes me think Donny van de Beek again. So maybe this is... but anyway, maybe I'm doing 2 + 2 and getting 5 on this one again. But yeah. No actual rumours, updates or anything like that, Brian, but the rumour mill forever spins in that sense.
Yeah. Definitely.
But yeah.
It looks like focus on renewals as well, because obviously that's 3 big contract renewals. So it's kind of like, right, we're going to tie down a couple of guys here as well. So I'm sure there's lots of work going on, like, people will kind of look at it and say we've not done much, but we've signed 2 players and we've signed 3 contract renewals. So we are doing stuff, just that people really want that big, breaking the transfer record or that kind of quality type signing to come in or whatever. But we're still moving forward, I think.
Big time, yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly how it all kind of pans out over the next, I think the next week or two, we're going to get some real movement potentially once Rodgers has been on the training ground with all of them in that kind of setting, I think that's all about me from McBride. Is there anything else for us to go over, do you think?
Don't think so, no. I think we'll maybe knock it forward another week, and then maybe we'll have signed somebody else and we'll have something else to talk about next week. But yeah,
and we'll start building some stacks.
Start building some stacks. I think I've already got some, to be honest. To be fair, I think I do own every single player in our team on Sorare. So, but it's not that far until the actual season comes back. I mean, talking about is it just over 3 weeks? First game 6th of August, so about 4 weeks away for the first home game against Ross County. So yeah, it's not far away.
It's flying in. Before you know it, we're going to be there. Back for, I think the James Forrest testimonial will be a mini kind of start a season event. Brendan Rodgers put a bit of a plea into the video saying we should be filling the stadium up for Forrest, and it made me think I'm going to go check out the tickets. So I think time is going to run away from us, and before we know it, we'll be at that Bilbao game. We'll be at Flag Day, and then we'll be getting Champions League group stage draws, and we'll be like, where the hell did the time go? So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. McBride's been an absolute pleasure, man. Hail, hail. Well done to everyone that stuck with us live this whole time. You absolute legends. Like, subscribe, share, and retweet. Hail, hail. Catch you on the next one, guys. Take care.
Yeah, guys.
Bye-bye.